Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do a little bit of disassembly on this little guy right here. This is the GiantMouse GM2. Interesting little knife here, and I'm looking forward to taking it apart. This just literally came in the mail yesterday, but it feels like it's running awfully dry at the moment, and so I'm looking forward to getting in there and doing some lubrication. I am also very curious to take a look at the innards of this guy, given that this is carbon fiber on both sides. And in fact, if we take a look here, we can kind of see the lockbar. So I'm really curious about the interior construction on this guy. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take it apart from the side opposite the lock. At least that's my dream here. So that I can get a really closer look at this liner lock sort of affair going on in the middle. I believe they call it a floating liner. But anyways, so that's kind of my goal here. And I think I'm going to try and avoid taking the back spacer off of the other side just to minimize the possibility of stripped screws. Looks like we've got some blue Loctite on the threads here. That's really no concern whatsoever for me. Come on. Is this just a really long screw? No, there we go. I don't mind blue Loctite at all. In fact, I put it on the knives I reassemble myself, so that's nice. I'm thinking this pivot is T8. Maybe it's T6 still. No, it's T8. Beautiful. And it's also free spinning. Although, yeah, let me go ahead and lock the other side down here. So I'm going to grab my other driver here. Just pop it down there. So this is a knife that I really feel like I needed to take apart in order to both review and, frankly, to carry. Because a little bit of white thread locker on there, but nothing too bad. Because, like I said, it feels like it's running very dry. In fact, out of the factory, I'm not super impressed because it also came a little bit on the dull side as well. There was a wire edge that was kind of bent over on it. And so, in order for me to really be able to do much cutting with it, I actually needed to strop it out myself. And that's, well, that's less than ideal. Now, let's see if I can pop this chunk of carbon fiber off the front of the knife. Holding down the blade with this other hand here, just hopefully avoiding that issue. That's not wanting to pop loose whatsoever. What I'm going to try and do here is pop the pivot out. So I've got a smaller Torx bit in the interior there, and hopefully applying a little bit of force. No? Good Lord. Why is this knife being so damn difficult? Could be that it's just tightly fit on the scale, the back spacer here. It could also be that the back spacer has a, there's a collar on this titanium back spacer that fits. There we go. Freaking finally. Wow. Yeah, okay. Must have just been a tight fit. But okay, now we can see what's going on here and take the knife fully apart. If I pop these... Are those screwed on there? No, it looks like just a tight fit. Yeah, I should be able to ease this back spacer on off of here. We can see already, though, the nature of the beast that we're dealing with here. Oh, those are the bearings, and it looks like, interesting, it's running on grease. And it looks like the closed-off portion of the bearing race is actually facing towards the scales of the knife, which is interesting and a little different, but ultimately unproblematic. Anyways, we can see the construction here is that the back spacer here and those three screws are actually what's holding that together, and so this liner here is effectively just a floating piece of metal. I got no reason to object to that as a construction method. This is not going to be God's gift to hard use, although it's worth noting that they sell, there we go, they sell the GMP2, I believe, a GM2P, something piratey for whatever the heck reason. They've got this pirate shtick going on that has the full titanium scales. The problem with that guy, and the reason I didn't go that route, is that it's 6 ounces, and that's, holy crap, that's a lot of knife. So anyways, yeah. So I'm trying to see if I can walk this liner right up here, up these back spaces. This bodes well for the overall tolerances of the knife, that it's being a little tricky here. Come on now. Just gonna be a question of, because you got 3 roughly parallel bars, just walking it up that direction. nice if I could get it far enough up that I could get something behind it. Provide a little bit more lateral sorts of movement, but I also don't want to injure the carbon fiber here, so I'm not going to use anything too hard. What I'm going to try and do, if I can, is get this little piece of stiff leather behind it, because there's no way that's going to hurt the steel particularly. Nor is it going to hurt the carbon fiber. By the way, sorry if you can hear what's going on over there. I got a CD ripping on my laptop. There we go. Looks like there's some sort of a substance on this pin itself that is what was holding the backspacer on and is what is now preventing this guy from sliding up further. I don't actually know what that is. Some sort of an adhesive? Well, what I'm going to do is see if I can go at it with a little patch here and some 91% isopropyl alcohol. I've already managed to spill it just all over myself in that 2 seconds since I introduced it, so looking like it's going to be all uphill from here, folks. But that's okay. Whatever. Once I get some of this off, and it is indeed coming right off, I'm hoping I'm going to be able to slide this off with a little bit more ease. The reason I'm sliding this off at all, you don't actually need to. Can I push these out? No, they're screwed in as well. The reason I'm even interested in getting underneath there is that I'd kind of like to put some sort of a... There we go, it's popping. It's popping and it's locking. I'd like to put some sort of a rust-preventing substance on the backside of this liner, just so that way... There we go, and we're off. What's laying, again, in case some kind of a water or moisture gets underneath this little area, this way I can clean this back part off as well as apply some sort of a rust protectant. So, there you go. That's nice. Let's go on ahead and move on to the, well, I need to clean these bearings up, because they're running this on some sort of a grease or another, and it's not impressing me much. I suspect this is going to run way better once I put it on some oil. And so I really got to get up in there and clean the caked-on grease and nastiness off of that. And I'm going to want to do the same thing with this bearing race here. It is worth noting that they put a stainless bearing race in there, which is good, because bearings against carbon fiber is, well, shall we say, less than ideal. There we go. This pivot is really tightly fit in there, which again is not a problem whatsoever, and in fact I don't even need it all the way out here. I just needed it down a little bit so I could get to the bearing race more easily. Pop that pivot back up through here. Okay, and then I'm going to need to clean the blade off here. There's no evidence of Sharpie, but I think there should be. So my buddy Minnesota Knife Guy, he's got a YouTube channel, by the way, just getting started in the reviewing world, but he has been kind of Instagram messaging me about this, because he picked one up a day before I did, actually, and because apparently he's closer to California where these all shipped off from. And he's been telling me, kind of giving me the update after he did his disassembly, and said that if you get any oil in the lock face, you're going to have some lock stick issues. That's a little bit ugly. I'm going to want to confirm that myself, of course. Just not that I no dig on the Minnesota Knife Guy, but, you know, I got to have my own sources for my reviews. Trust nobody. You know, this is serious, important stuff right here. But anyways, so I'm going to really make sure, and I'm going to attack the lock stick from the start. I'm going to make sure and use a little bit of Sharpie on the inside of the, on the blade tang as well as the lock face. So what I'm doing here is completely unnecessary and retentive, but there's a little bit of grease left over on the inside of this bearing track, and I'm just going to try and pull some of it out of here. That's ugly. It'll just interfere with whatever good stuff I actually do put in there. Is it the end of the world? No, not at all. But, you know, it is something I'd rather remove. Then finally get in here, clean this out. I'm going to use a Q-tip or cotton swab applicator. There's no need for the name brand, as in so many things in life. And just try and get that out of the rest of the bearing race here. Clean that through. Beautiful. Alrighty. So, anything else that I'm needing to do here? I'll clean off my pivot just in case. This has literally been flipped maybe 80 times or something like that. Just last night watching the TV, trying to get it to break in a little bit more here. And I'm going to go ahead and use the Q-tip here just to clean off the bearing race. Get in the groove. Get my groove back. Tentative title for this video, how Nick Shabazz got his groove back. The answer, he never had it at all. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe off this little titanium bit here. Nice anodization, although you can see that it faded rather quickly with exposure to oil from the hands. You can also see which number is mine. So if down the road you buy a GM2, after I sell mine, if I sell mine, and it has a number 278, well, by God, your GM2 is internet famous. Congratulations. Next step here is going to be to apply a little bit of frog lube to this lock bar here. Again, is this necessary? Probably not. No. Is it something I'm going to do? Yes, absolutely. Because this will, pardon me, help to prevent any rust sorts of issues from popping up again in the future. And I'm going to go ahead and use my little Q-tip here to clear out that, and that. There we go. That'll also have the benefit of, and by the way, you can see there's a nice little bit of Vox and So engraving right here. On that, can't argue with it. But okay, now let's drop this on and see now that it's lubricated. It slides a little easier once the geometry is right back into its home. And I can be very, very sure that absolutely no harm is going to come to the back side of this. Wiping off a little bit of the excess here. The frog lube is potent stuff. Now, moving along. Put a little bit of it there. Can drop this back spacer right back into position where it was, which is beautiful. And we can start the reassembly. So as I said in my my takedown, for whatever reason, these bearings were positioned with the flat closed portion facing out towards the scales. Okay, whatever. You know, I don't really have a strong position as to whether that is important in my life or anybody else's, but by God, I'm going to do it because, well, chances are the folks who designed the damn thing know a little bit better than we do. Although, who knows, maybe it's just luck of the draw. But anyways, I'm just boozing this blade a little bit more here because why not? Still a little bit of that grease on there. Not a big fan of that grease, but I think this is going to be in a different class once it's running on oil rather than the grease. Whoa there. As I'm putting oil all over my lock bar. Speaking of my lock bar, actually, that reminds me, before I go too much further, I'm going to go ahead and use a just standard permanent marker here. Draw a little bit on the lock bar face. This is the portion that exposes the, that locks up against the blade. Now here we go. Drop that in there. There we go. Alrighty. So, reassembly. What I'm going to do here is put a little bit of that oil into the bearing race and just use the bearing itself to distribute said oil. Drop a little bit more on the inside there. And a little bit here. Probably overdoing it, but why not? This is a dangerous game I'm playing because of the lock stick issue. A little bit of a detent ramp here, by the way. You can see they've kind of rounded off that little edge, which is nice. If there's a lock stick issue, this may exacerbate it, but if there's not, it'll... And I've already done the Sharpie, so hopefully it won't be a problem in the grand scheme. I'm wanting to make sure that that bearing seats itself, you know, that it's nicely centered onto the... So actually what I'm going to do is I reassemble this guy is drop this bearing into the blade rather than... Because there it fits precisely, and then I'll just drop it in like this. That way I know for sure that there's no real concern, and that the bearing is properly centered and in the right position. this stop pin isn't wanting to come out. Whoa there. Yeah, there that went. Little piece of advice, if you're dealing with a part that pops out like that, just a little hint of some sort of a lubrication will often help to keep it in there, just due to, well, not that kind of physics person, so but I believe it's just due to the surface tension. Again, just dropping that in there, and I'm going to go ahead and use, again, rotating the bearings to distribute some of that oil onto the bearings themselves. There we go, there we go. Drop this in here. And anything else that needs to go in here? No. So let's go ahead and put this back on. Hope that this bearing race doesn't fall out again. In order for me to seat the the stop pin, what I actually needed to do was to press down on the lock bar here. That disengages the blade a little bit and allows the lock bar to get into its proper positioning. So might have to do that again, but it's just going to be a question of snapping everything home. This is a little bit off kilter here. Not quite sure why. Could just be this portion back here. Yeah, the whole thing's just a little bit loose. So what I'm going to do is just start reassembling, that is re-screwing everything. Go ahead and start with the pivot just because that's what I've already got on here. I'm going to use a little bit of blue 242 thread locker Loctite stuff, not the red stuff. The red stuff is pure Revel. Absolutely pure. It has its purposes in like car parts and stuff where you don't want your brakes disassembling themselves roughly ever. But in the knife making world, just solid evil. Total shame. Where's my stopper? My nano oil is bleeding everywhere. Come on now. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to keep my nano oil from dripping out over the world. Here we go. I'm sure there's a subset of people at home who would just like screaming at the monitor, Nick, it's under that little sheet. At least there would be if I was watching. Armchair disassemblers, I suppose. There we go. And let's slide this little pin right in here. Beautiful. And I'm just putting those, I'm not doing too much torque quite yet. Sliding that in here. And sliding this into here. Since I didn't detach the clip, that shouldn't be a problem. Wow, that's better. Centering is good. I'm gonna try and lock the pivot down a little bit more, see if it actually is, doing. No, it seems to be about where it needs to be. In that case, I'll lock these back screws down the rest of the way. Not going too tight, just finger tight, Actually, I need to back this pivot off very slightly. Made it a little too tight. The detent on this knife is unfortunately very soft. It's not like end of the world, I'm returning it soft, but it is a little frustrating. So this is going to need a little bit more of a free swing and action in order for it to really work effectively. There we go. I believe centering's good. Can I go any lighter? I think I just introduced... No? Okay. There we go. And because I've got the Loctite in there, it'll stay in that position for a good long time. Alrighty, well, that's your GM2, disassembled and reassembled. A little longer than most, but hey, such is life. Hope this has been interesting for you, that if you pick one of these guys up, you enjoy it, but mostly that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.